Hello, and welcome back to It's a Very Exciting Time, a podcast by a UFO nerd and his tolerant friend. My name is Scott, and I've been fascinated by the phenomenon my whole life.
And I'm Chuck. I'm an aerospace nerd and a tolerant friend.
We started this podcast because since 2017, there have been shocking revelations, from news of secret Pentagon programs to confirmed videos of astonishing craft. In a nutshell, now that we know the government has recovered non-human technology.
Or at least we will, once Aliens.gov is up and running.
That's right. Raises a natural question. If UFOs are real, what else? Suddenly, some of these other parts of the phenomenon that seemed unlikely are pulled into the realm of the possible.
And they may still be unlikely, but even if it's new science and not aliens, woo!
It's a very exciting time. Oh my God, Chuck.
Hey, buddy. Yeah. It's been a while.
So normally we go every 2 weeks. So
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, it was
I'm
podcast
aware.
recording weekend. And I sat down and I kind of looked at my saved notes. I'm like, I don't really have anything. It's a whole bunch of like little updates to old stories. I'm like, let's sit it out, wait a couple of weeks, see if anything happens.
Okay.
So now it's been 4 weeks since we recorded, and I sit down and look at my notes and I go, oh boy, like there's not like one story to talk about. There's like, this story has an update and this story has an update. I'm like, fine, it'll be one of those things where we're kind of all over the map. So I start pulling all my notes into the show notes. Hours later, I look up and realize I still have like more than will fit. So this week,
so it's gonna be a long episode.
The drones are back at Barksdale Air Force Base in Louisiana.
That's cool.
Vice President J.D. Vance went on record saying that he thinks UFOs are demons. And multiple scientists have published papers replicating Dr. Beatrice Villarreal's studies showing that there were artificial objects in orbit before Sputnik. And those are the stories we don't have time to talk about this week.
No. Okay. Cool. So, what are we going to talk about? If those didn't make the list, it's going to be good.
Yeah, so we're going to start with a story that the UFO community is all over, and nobody can really tell whether this is a totally normal, non-UFO related thing, or if this is a weirdly suspicious thing. I kind of didn't want to talk about it, but this story has not died. It just keeps coming through, and at this point I feel like we have to at least mention it. So here's a brief summary from CNN. A high-ranking retired U.S. Air Force Major General who once commanded a base long associated with UFO lore has been missing for nearly 2 weeks. Retired Air Force Major General William Neil McCasland, 68, left his Albuquerque home on foot at approximately 11 a.m. February 27th and has not been in contact with family or friends since. His phone, prescription glasses, and wearable devices were left behind at the house, and investigators believe his wallet and a .38 caliber revolver with a leather holster are missing.
Really specific details, like what does the leather holster have to do with anything? But I don't know. I mean, that's like the
part of the standard procedure when someone goes missing is they look for what they took with them.
Yeah, it makes sense. Yeah, I guess
part of the reason
if you happen to find a leather holster.
Yeah,
it makes
part
sense.
of the reason they're mentioning all this is McCasland is, although he is 68, he is very fit. He is part of a hiking club in his area. Like, he goes for hikes all the time. So that part isn't weird. They did issue a silver alert when he went missing, which is, I don't know if that's a national thing or just a regional thing, but it's kind of like a yellow alert, but for seniors. He retired because he was experiencing brain fog at work. But the news and his family are being very clear that he is not like, an old person with dementia issues. Like, he's still very together and with it and leaves the house on his own all the time. What's unusual is he left his phone and his glasses and his wallet behind. No, he took his wallet and just disappeared without telling anybody. So maybe he walked off a trail. Maybe he fell and hurt himself. Maybe he's gone missing. Maybe he was abducted. Like, nobody really knows, and that's what's weird about it.
maybe he's on one last heist or
Maybe.
one
Yeah.
last covert ops. Anyways, so okay, cool. I haven't heard this name. How is he connected to the UFO world?
Funny story. You have heard this name, but it's
Oh, I
been a
have.
minute. So let's
Okay.
uh let's recap for you and everybody else who maybe don't
Okay.
recognize
Thank you.
General McCasland. Liberation Times was writing about this. They summarized it as he was a former commander of the Air Force Research Laboratory at Wright-Patterson, whose
Okay.
career placed him at the center of some of the Pentagon's most advanced aerospace research. After his military career ended, he became involved with Blink 182 rocker Tom DeLonge and his UFO related efforts, which helped lay the groundwork for the modern congressional push for disclosure on unidentified anomalous phenomenon, or UAP.
Okay. Yeah, it has been a while since we've talked about Tom DeLonge, so that makes sense
Yeah,
why I wouldn't remember the name. Okay.
we literally haven't talked about Tom DeLonge since the second episode of the show,
Right.
which, to
Yeah,
be
it's
fair, was dedicated to Tom DeLonge. But yeah,
yeah, but
uh,
you'd think he'd do more. Anyways, carry on.
yeah. Here's a quote from an article a while ago, kind of talking about Tom DeLonge and his claims. And as a reminder for everyone, Tom DeLonge came out and said he was in contact with all these high level people in the government, and everybody made fun of him for it and assumed he was full of shit until WikiLeaks happened. And one
Oh.
of the people's whose emails were leaked as part of WikiLeaks was John Podesta, who
Hmm.
is a big believer in UFOs, and we can now confirm was in contact with Tom DeLonge. So from the time, TWZ reported, we know from WikiLeaks that the Podesta email from the WikiLeaks Podesta emails that in 2016, Tom openly discussed in correspondence about being in direct contact with Rob Weiss, the head of Skunkworks. Calendar invites for a virtual meeting from Podesta's emails include participants Tom DeLonge, Rob Weiss, and retired Air Force General William Neal McCasland. The general will prove to be a central figure in Tom's story. Originally, Tom kept the general's identity somewhat hidden, but that has since changed.
Do you know like why it changed or when it changed? Or
It
was it
changed
because of
as people
WikiLeaks?
kind of pieced it together. Tom had given a
Okay.
few clues about who this individual was. But basically, one of Tom's big claims is he kind of started probing this topic from the outside, and he wanted to get in contact with high level people in the Pentagon to start To the Stars Academy with the goal of doing kind of a disclosure thing, but in kind of a pro military way. And it was apparently working pretty well. Um, Tom had a story specifically about General McCasland. So mostly what he says about the general was how he knew things were getting serious and he was getting introduced to people. But he has this one very particular attention grabbing stories. So this is from an interview with George Knapp back in the day. Tom says, the general leans across the table, and these are the very first words he said to me. It was the Cold War, and every single day we lived under the threat of nuclear war. And somewhere in those years, we found a life form. And everything we did and every decision we made with that life form was because of the consciousness at the time.
But what does he mean by consciousness?
The fact that it was the Cold War and we were worried that Russia might nuke us or we might nuke Russia at any time. This is He's saying this is the context in which they are dealing with UFOs and aliens. Um,
I see. I see. I see. Okay.
yeah. Um, in another interview, Tom DeLonge was talking about the general, and he's trying to clarify that he's not just any, military general. He says, look, he was in charge of all of the stuff. When Roswell crashed, they shipped it to the laboratory at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. General McCasland was in charge of that exact laboratory up to a couple years ago.
That's fun. So, if anyone is going to know about it, it's this general. Or, I mean,
That's the
unless it's.
implication. Yeah. That
Yeah. Okay.
Tom was
Cool.
introduced when Tom started making inroads into the government. there's
Mhm.
a couple of points where someone says, introduce him to the general. The general
Okay.
is kind of regarded as a gatekeeper for this stuff, and Tom got access
Mhm.
through the general. Um, it is worth noting that the general, when 2017 happened and Lou Elizondo came out and To the Stars was all over the news, um, all of that was in reaction to WikiLeaks. Like,
Okay.
Tom's original plan was not to go public with
Of course. Yeah.
whistleblower claims. His plan was to kind of do like Steven Spielberg kind of stuff, like make
Hmm.
movies that are theoretically fiction projects, but include basically the truth and kind of like
Interesting.
get the public and especially young people ready for it,
Yeah.
very pro military kind of way. Um, After WikiLeaks, the general was less involved with the public facing side. This is a quote from
Sure.
McCasland's wife, Susan. She said, after the Russians hacked John Podesta's emails, there was less contact with Tom and the community pushing for release of UFO information. This connection is not a reason for someone to abduct Neil. Neil does not have any special knowledge about ET bodies and debris from the Roswell crash stored at Wright-Patterson.
It's like, you know those shirts that are like, ask me about my keyboard. I feel like she should get one that says, my husband does not have special knowledge about ET bodies, but I feel like it's
Yeah,
just gonna raise a lot more questions
yeah.
that it answers. Like, yeah.
My General McCasland doesn't know about UFOs shirt is raising a lot of questions answered by my shirt. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So like I said, this has been in the news for a few weeks now
Mm.
because he hasn't been found. The dude is a legendary figure who is connected to UFO lore. It's also not unheard of for high-ranking military and scientist peoples to maybe be targeted by foreign governments. So, like, the FBI is investigating this. This isn't just a local police matter. People are taking it
Yeah.
seriously. And the
Hmm.
fact that people are taking it seriously is lighting the UFO community on fire. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but notably, not just the UFO community. Representative Tim Burchett, when talking about this story, said,
Does
I've been
hang
told by.
on. Does Tim Burchett not count as the UFO community?
Okay, that's fair. I guess what I meant is, in addition to Reddit, people in
Okay. All
Congress
right.
are talking about this. Tim Burchett said, I have been told by several sources that General McCasland was the gatekeeper for the UFO stuff. This is a very small fraternity. When something happens to one of them, the others take note. I was briefed this past week, and I'll just say that group is very nervous.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to really quickly type out and figure out what the Greek letters for UAP were, but I didn't get there
All right.
because it's a small fraternity.
Oh, Jesus
Sorry.
Christ, Chuck.
Don't.
All right,
Anyways,
maybe
it makes sense.
maybe our Discord community can get on this. Maybe this is a new T-shirt idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
There you go.
in addition to Tim Burchett, we heard from former ATIP director Lou Elizondo, who said, I hope and pray this is not one of those cases where a former senior military officer was specifically targeted and that he will be found happy and healthy.
Yeah. Or eh, yeah. I'm hoping he was abducted in the way that, now he's time traveling, and I just watched Star Trek 4, the whale
Yeah,
one, so
yeah,
I hope
the
it was
best one.
that, but it is the best
There
one.
are your nuclear vessels.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, here's where the story gets a little weird. And here's the thing. Again, I wasn't gonna talk about this because it's like UFO adjacent, but
Yeah,
there's technically nothing UFO about it. Old man leaves house isn't a UFO story.
yeah,
Old man who used to be connected to UFOs allegedly still isn't a UFO story. Old man who used to be connected to UFOs disappears under mysterious circumstances. The FBI are investigating it, and people in Congress are talking about it. Okay, we kind of got to talk about this. But here's where it gets weird, and this is why I put the story in this week.
Okay.
Representative Eric Burleson, responding to news that we'll talk about in a second,
Okay.
posts on Twitter, "I am not suicidal."
Mm,
And in
okay.
another interview, Representative Tim Burchett said, "And for the record, I'm not suicidal and I don't take risks."
Yeah. Okay. So it seems a little bit dramatic, but like I get that they're trying to make sure that people know that that wasn't the thing. But why do they think something nefarious happened in
Right.
particular?
So here's the thing. The story they were responding to was not William McCasland still missing. The story they were
Okay.
responding to is a ninth scientist connected to NASA and William McCasland has gone missing or died in recent years.
I see.
I had a whole paragraph in here, but the problem is it's 9 people, and literally just going down the list and giving like a 1 sentence summary of each of them would take us another 10 minutes to get through.
Mm,
The short version of this story is that something like 9 scientists connected to NASA and the Air Force have died, been killed, or gone missing in the last couple of years, some of them as
okay.
recently as February. They are all at least loosely connected, and in several cases are connected directly to General McCasland. There are multiple scientists who, just like William McCasland, were last seen leaving their house without some of the things you would expect them to take and just disappeared. A materials scientist was hiking in the woods with her friends. One of them turned around and saw her. She waved. They turned around. 30 seconds later, she was gone. Um,
Hmm.
a JPL scientist was shot to death on his porch.
Oh,
Some others died, and there's no public information on how they died, which doesn't mean anything, but
it's a little weird.
there's details in the show notes if anybody's curious
Yeah.
about this.
Okay.
But the short version is I don't find this particularly compelling because it feels like one of those conspiracy theory boards with red strings linking a bunch of photos. It's like
Yeah.
these 2 scientists who were at JPL were working on a
Mm,
program that was funded by the Wright-Patterson Research Group, which was led by William McCasland, who also worked on this other program, which employed these 2 scientists. And it's like, it's not like
yeah.
9 people from the same group went missing within 6 months. It's over like
Right.
2 or 4 years. Some of them
Hmm.
appear to have died of natural causes. Some of them have disappeared. At least one was openly killed, but it doesn't seem like it was an assassination. It was one of those fucking unfortunate crimes. It's weird and it's
Yeah.
UFO adjacent, and the
Hmm.
conspiracy leaning part of the community is all over it.
All in. Yeah.
But I don't find it super compelling yet, but it is at the point where enough people are talking about it that I kind of feel like we had to mention it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the conspiracy part of Reddit, like they just love getting that red yarn out, so
Sure.
I get it.
Yeah.
Um, so before we started recording,
Mm-hmm.
you were talking about how this sort of sounds like the start of the three body problem, but
Oh,
I have
yeah,
not
yeah.
read that or seen the movie or TV
Okay.
show.
First
I
of
don't know.
all, Chuck,
Yeah.
you should read The Three Body Problem. This
I've
is
heard it's super duper violent though. No?
it, there is violence in it, but it's not like
Okay.
it,
Okay. I should watch it
here's
or
the
read
short
it.
version. It
Okay.
is a story that opens with a bunch of scientists killing themselves. These
Okay.
scientists all have things in their note that says science is broken and like their entire life was a waste. And then the main character scientist develops this like visual glitch where they see a countdown in their field of vision. The whole thing turns out to be connected to aliens. It's a fascinating story. It's a Chinese
Okay.
trilogy of novels that have been well translated.
Yeah.
I have
Taiwanese, right?
watched 3 adaptations. I've read the first book and I've watched 3 adaptations of the first book. Listened to an audiobook. I watched the Chinese produced series that was something like 20 hours of television. I watched the first couple episodes of the more recent American Netflix adaptation. They're all very good. It's a very compelling science fiction story, and it's
Okay.
worth watching.
Okay.
But it does open with a bunch of scientists dying. So, of course,
Okay.
people on the internet who see this is connected to UFOs are like, oh my God, it's
Oh
the
my
three
God, it's
body
happening.
problem. Yeah.
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 Okay. Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
So now that we've got our conspiracy theory story out of the way, let's talk about President Trump saying that he wants to disclose UFO files. Because that's not conspiracy, that's a real thing.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Somehow. Yeah.
So, for anybody who doesn't remember, the short version of that is this was a freaking wild story. And last time we talked about it, I talked about it in the context of how this came about, but
Yeah.
didn't really have much in the way of people reacting to it other than Luna salivating that she was going to finally get some secrets. So, there were
Great.
rumors that President Trump was going to give a UFO disclosure speech. Um,
Yeah.
in the wake of those rumors, President Obama had an interview where someone asked him about UFOs, and he
Right.
said aliens are real.
Right.
Then he kind of walked that back. Then someone
Yeah.
asked President Trump about Obama's comments, and Trump was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Whoa, he said something classified. He's not supposed to do that." And then
Mm-hmm.
before anybody could really pin him down on what part of what Obama said was classified,
Yeah.
he tweeted that night, "I'm ordering the Department of War to release all the UFO files." So
Yeah.
it's been a wild ride since then.
Yeah. Right.
Um, like I said, we had a few quotes last time, but it's been a few weeks now.
Yeah.
And just to, like, spoiler alert, there has been no satisfying resolution to this story yet. It's still kind of in
Okay.
the air,
Yeah.
but some
All
things
right.
have happened that I do want to talk about.
Okay. Cool.
First of all, someone thought, hey, maybe we should ask Hegseth about it. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, who's the head of
Yeah.
the Department of War, who's just been told by the president to drop the UFO files. So they
All
asked
right.
him, and Hegseth goes, I did not have that on my bingo card at all. Which, awesome. Great reaction.
Yeah.
But he goes on to say, we've got our people working on it right now. We're digging in, and we're going to be in full compliance with that executive order, eager to provide that for the president. So there'll be more coming on that as far as the process of what we'll do. I don't have a time frame for you yet, but stand by.
So was there actually an executive order recently?
Oh,
I thought
you sweet
okay.
summer child. Of course there's no executive order yet.
Okay. Cool. Cool.
Journalist
Cool.
Christopher Sharp, in the wake of Hegseth's comment, said, I asked the Department of War to confirm whether President Trump has issued them with any recent executive orders related to UFOs or UFPs. They could not confirm or deny. Instead, they referred me to the White House.
What? Like, why would you need to confirm? Do the like can't confirm or deny? Like, I get that there's times, but it seemed like
The
executive orders are
vibe,
so public,
yeah, the
aren't
vibe
they?
I get is if you are operating in Trump's circle, you want to be very careful not to contradict him publicly. He
Oh, okay.
hasn't released an executive order, but he sounded like he wanted to or was going to. And you
Yeah.
don't want to be the guy who puts fire under him by saying, well, he hasn't given me an order, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I
I
don't know.
wonder.
That's just reading into it.
So I wonder too if this is one of those things where like, well, he said it, and this is what I wanted to do anyways, so we're gonna
Yeah.
go ahead and do it.
Yeah, for sure. Certainly the UAP caucus, right? Burchett,
Yeah.
Burleson, and Luna are all in. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
awesome. We have air
Great.
cover
We're
now.
doing this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
What's interesting though is if there is a single through line in this podcast since the day we started, is there is a vibe that in the halls of power in the Pentagon and the White House, there's a struggle between two factions, one that is pro disclosure and one that is anti disclosure. And
Okay.
at
Sure.
various times, one or the other faction kind of gets an upper hand. Some information gets out, then the other faction kind of swings back up. But there isn't a coherent, like, everybody agrees this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Of course.
And that's very confusing and happening for a
Yeah.
bunch of reasons. But we are continuing to hear that in the wake of President Trump saying, I'm going to do UFO disclosure. Filmmaker Jeremy Corbell said, right now, there is a discussion at the Pentagon and the White House from people who work with messaging, and they're debating if radical honesty has to be the foundation of what they're figuring out how to say.
I don't understand. So if radical honesty is the foundation,
Mm-hmm.
that's catastrophic disclosure. Is that the kind of idea?
No, that would be
Or
full disclosure. Catastrophic
okay.
disclosure is our hands are forced, right? The Russians
Oh,
tell the
okay.
world,
Okay.
and now we're on the back foot and we have to react. Full
Okay.
disclosure is still driven by us. So in this
Okay.
case, radical
Got it.
transparency would look like we recovered a UFO from Roswell in 1947. We've been studying it and reverse engineering it for 80 years, and we haven't made a whole lot of progress. And we can't stop these things that are flying around in our airspace and turning off our nuclear missiles.
Okay. I
You
mean,
can understand why some people might be hesitant to make a statement
yeah.
like that. Um,
I,
there's 100 reasons why they might not want to disclose. What I
yeah.
read that thing about radical honesty, radical transparency is how much disclosure are we going to give? And the vibe that I'm hearing from people is that they may be going to do some disclosure, but it's going to look like kind of a partial disclosure. Here are
Mm,
some more military videos of UFOs that were previously classified, but we don't know what to make of them. But they're not saying anything about whether there is a reverse engineering crash retrieval program. They're not going to say, oh, yeah, we had a treaty with the Zeta Reticulans. Like it's here's a little bit more drip feed of the truth. See how people
mm,
handle it.
okay. Sure. Makes sense.
Speaking of reasons people might not want to disclose, one of the things Lou Elizondo has alleged from early days is that there is a contingent in the Pentagon who views this whole thing as demonic. See also Vice President Vance.
Yeah.
Um, Tim Burchett echoed that this week. He said, look, I'm a Christian, and they appealed to me on that level. Burchett, this stuff's kind of anti-Christian, and your beliefs. And I said, no, it isn't. Genesis 1. God created the heavens and the earth.
Yeah. I mean, that's I've had that fight with my dad a couple times, and it always ends with, like, who do you think started the Big Bang? All right, fuck.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good call.
Representative Luna has been talking a lot, and Burchett confirmed this, but this episode is so overloaded, I had to cut like 4 or 5 quotes here. But the short version
Yeah, yeah,
is
yeah.
Burchett and Luna have both said that they received briefings from an alphabet agency in the last week or two where they saw a lot of stuff. Luna at one
Yeah.
point slipped and actually said it was the FBI. We have been
Mm,
hearing rumors for the last year or so that the FBI has a UFO investigation body
okay.
internally, independent of Arrow or any other thing, and that is what Luna and Burchett were briefed by. Representative Luna said, as soon as we get the official on paper declassification order, more confirmation there is no executive order yet,
Yeah,
I
right.
want to do a press conference with all the information that we were told and shown in that FBI briefing because it is important for people to know. Every single
Wow.
member of Congress that has gone into that briefing that we've had has come out and said, holy shit. And then they asked her, like, well, what do you think people will see? She said, you're definitely going to see a lot of interesting footage, a lot of photos, firsthand accounts from certain people that will be out in those reports. I think you're going to get a lot of cool stuff, but I don't think there's going to ever be the full admission. They'll release it, but they're not going to tell you what to make of it.
Oh, yeah, that makes sense. But hey, I'll take a big ass release. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Anything is better than nothing.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
someone asked Representative Burchett at some point, like, do you think this is actually going to happen? And
Mm,
Burchett said, well, the president said he's going to put it out, and he hasn't lied to me yet. I hope it's going to happen. I hope they don't get to him and make him pull back. That's what's happened in the past. That's what happened with every report that they've had. They say they're going to bring it out, and then they don't. I talked to the president about it. I hope we get an answer. So to my
Yeah.
mind, that's Burchett again, kind of hinting at this idea of competing factions. You have one faction like, we're going to put out a report. We're actually going to share some stuff. And then the other
Yeah.
faction kind of comes in and goes, no, that ain't
Hmm.
happening.
Yeah. Interesting. I
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be fun to see. And I feel like they have gotten some things released. Like the Epstein files was still kind of a big surprise to me.
I mean, they still haven't released all the Epstein files, but yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
I will take partial disclosure over zero disclosure. Like,
Yeah.
let's be very clear about how I feel about this. You got a video? I want to see it. The last thing that happened on this like presidential disclosure train is Representative Luna finally sent a letter to Secretary Hegseth. She kind of mentioned last time that we have a list of files that
Mm-hmm.
whistleblowers have told us about that we're going to ask about. So we talked about this in the last episode. This idea that they can get specific file IDs and make it harder
Yeah.
for them to deny it.
Right.
So the letter opens, it says, the Federal Secrets Task Force is continuing its investigation into UAP. The continued lack of transparency surrounding these anomalies and potential national security threat they pose is troubling. Whistleblowers informed the task force that Arrow possesses additional video recordings of potential UAP sightings.
Oh,
To
shit.
continue its investigation, the task force requests certain video files related to UAP sightings. The lack of disclosure regarding the very real threat posed by UAPs in and around U.S. restricted airspace is concerning. The task force has found responses from Arrow, when questioned about UAP sightings and provided data, less than adequate. The
No
presence
kidding.
of UAPs in and around the sensitive airspaces of U.S. military installations poses a threat to the security of the armed forces and their readiness. To assist the task force in its investigation of UAPs, we request the following videos be delivered as soon as possible, but no later than April 14th, 2026, which we're recording this
2 days.
on Sunday. That's Tuesday.
Yeah. All right. So, hopefully we see something like April 14th of 2027 or
Well,
2028. We'll see.
yeah.
So any like examples in that list that really got you like excited?
Yeah, so there's like 40 videos in the list, and most of them have very
Okay.
mundane titles, but there are a few that
Okay.
stood out. Uh, for UAP formation, Iran, August 2022. Syrian UAP instant acceleration, 2021. Cigar-shaped or fat spherical UAP, October 2022. Spherical UAP over AFG in and out of clouds, November 2020. That one's interesting because I think we've already seen that video, but it was leaked
Hmm.
rather than officially released.
Got it.
George Knapp and Jeremy Corbell shared this video where you see a classic saucer looking UFO kind of like playfully darting in and out of clouds. Like it's kind of drifting along and it seems to realize it's being observed and quickly zips back into the clouds. It's really funny. Um, the another one that stood out to me because this one's in civilian area instead of military was several UAP in vicinity of Columbus, Ohio airport.
Ooh.
But there was one video that really put up a red flag for me, and I'm really excited if we get to see this one.
Yeah.
U.S. Air Force ANG F-16C, call sign ASEER 11, shoots down UAP over Lake Huron with AIM 9X February 12th, 2023. Now, Chuck, if that date isn't ringing a bell for you,
It's not,
that's the
but
day when we shot down 3 UAP after that Chinese spy balloon drifted
okay.
overhead. They found
Yeah.
wreckage from one and claimed to not find anything from the other. Now, Ross Coulthart has said for years that he has evidence that the military did shoot down one over Lake Huron.
Okay.
And here's Luna requesting a UAP shot down that day over Lake Huron.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So who knows?
Could
You
be
know,
could be
might be
interesting.
able to.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe. We'll see.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
All right. Now this is gonna feel like a bit of a departure, but trust me, this is going somewhere.
Bit of an
Around the
abduction.
time that all this discussion is happening, actor Michael Ian Black posts a blog post where he talks about his experience with UFO stuff. Now, Michael Ian Black has been kind of tangentially involved in the UFO community. He's one of those actors who, is kind of in the same boat as us. He's interested in the stuff, he talks about it. But because he's famous,
Mm,
people seek him out.
sure.
So he had this story that I found really interesting. He says, a couple of years ago, I was invited into a small group chat with a couple of folks in regular contact with a prominent figure in ufology. I don't want to reveal that person's name because I don't want to betray any trusts, so you'll have to take me at my word. In that chat, which occurred over about 18 months, I was fed information which explicitly stated that a massive object is entering our solar system.
Okay, so this is Avi Loeb. Carry on.
Avi Loeb has not said a massive object is entering. What Avi Loeb has said is every time something is spotted, that might be aliens, which
Yeah.
he's not wrong. His argument
Yeah.
is we should go
Yeah.
check. Um, what this actually echoes is another figure that we haven't talked about in quite some time, Anjali. Anjali
Oh, okay.
claimed that there was a group from the Federation that was going to be coming to the solar system in a massive ship and was going to be arriving, around 2027, and this would be the start of a big thing. So this is one of those things where I note, like, oh, like we've heard these rumors before. Massive alien ship. They don't mean like aircraft carrier. They mean like planetoid size, like
Yeah.
huge thing. Michael Ian Black, going back to him, the object was first spotted several years ago by the European Space Agency and subsequently confirmed by our own. In terms of size, it was described to me as planet-sized, which set off a massive red flag in my own brain as a planet-sized object would surely have gravitational effects on our own planets, right? And I
Maybe.
just want to ask you, is that true? I mean, obviously, if it stayed in the solar system, it would, but is it guaranteed that it would cause a gravitational wobble, or is that only if it passes close enough to other planets and stuff?
Okay, so officially speaking, according to the actual three body problem, yes, it has an effect. But is it noticeable? Like the
Right.
ISS has a gravitational effect on the Earth too,
Sure.
but it's not noticeable. So the question is, how big is it? How close is
Mm-hmm.
it? Um, and if it's Jupiter sized, heck yeah, that's going to cause some stuff. If it's planetoid, like Ceres, no,
Yeah,
not at all.
that's kind of what I figured. Yeah, like if it passed right by another planet,
Sure.
you might have detected a wobble if you were looking for it. But yeah,
Yeah.
um, Michael Ian Black again. Next, I was told this object was decelerating as it approaches our solar system. Now we're back in Avi Loeb territory. This is his
Hmm.
jam.
Hmm.
Here's an
Yeah.
object that could absolutely be explained plausibly as an asteroid or a comet, except it's behaving in a weird way, like maneuvering and slowing down. Those aren't
Yeah.
things natural objects tend to do. Um, he said, I was told it would arrive around 2027. This is significant because the date 2027 has been floating around ufology for some time as an important year by mysterious sources.
Yeah, I don't really have a response to that. I guess what I'm thinking about right now is like if we can tell how fast it's going based on deceleration and the target date, um, that might tell us how quickly it's moving, but
Mhm.
I'm not
Yeah.
sure that's true.
Yeah, it's hard to say. And keep in mind, we're hearing this third or fourth hand filtered through a
Mhm.
non-astronomer who's just writing it on his blog.
Right.
Um, he doesn't conclude. I have a little more. He says, finally, I was shown a photograph of the object, which had been, apparently, taken from a ground based observatory somewhere in the US. What I saw looked gray and fuzzy. It could have been
Yeah.
anything. I would
Yep.
republish the photograph here, but I believe the person who originally posted it to our chat removed it because of that person's belief in the sensitivity of the image.
Yeah.
What I will say is this does track with what we saw from 3i Atlas, right? Like when we were
Right.
able to get photos of it until it got really close, it was a gray blob.
It's just
Like,
a dot.
and we talked about that at the time. Like our telescopes aren't built to be aimed at things that close. They just
Right.
aren't. They're intended to look further afield. They're not optimized for things at this distance. So,
Yeah. They're also just really tiny.
yeah,
It's like trying to use a pair of binoculars in your backyard to look at an individual grain of sand. Like, sure, okay, I
absolutely.
guess, but still hard.
Yeah. And it's one of those things like, on the one hand, I like that he wasn't shown an absurd high definition shot. Like
Yeah.
it's if it was real, this is the kind of thing I would expect the photo to look like. On the other hand, as Michael Ian Black notes, the photo could have been anything. Like
Easily.
it's not compelling as evidence because you have to believe what the astronomers are telling you it represents and believe
Hmm.
that you're not being lied to.
Yeah.
Now, for anybody who's worrying about Michael Ian Black's sanity, the reason he's telling this story, he says, to be clear, while I find this story fascinating, I don't find it credible. People way more prominent in the UFO community than myself, such as filmmaker Jeremy Corbell, say that the narrative about a 2027 object is some kind of psyop by our government. In a video released months ago, Corbell said, okay, so UFOs are real. They've been here a long time. That's the truth. But the lie is coming. All indications, like all of them, is that the lie is going to be that there is a craft slowly making its way to us here on Earth, and that is the lie they're going to want you to believe. I find this fascinating because we have heard multiple people in the field say they have been approached by insiders and fed this information.
Hey.
I believe that part is true,
Okay.
that multiple people have been
Sure.
approached and fed this information. I don't know who the people are that were approaching them or
Sure.
whether the information is true.
Sure.
And we have factual evidence that in the past, our own government has actively misled the UFO community. See
Yeah.
Richard Doty and Paul Benowitz for a famous
Right.
example. But like, it's not outside the realm of possibility that for reasons that they've convinced themselves are good, they have decided to actively mislead a contingent of the community. There's also a belief that the military will do things where they will float a mix of truth and lies so that you can discredit the person with the part you can disprove, but also in case the real secret is leaked, you can now discredit it because that information is already out there and attached to something easily disproven.
Yeah. Also,
So,
false flag where
yeah,
like you give each person different info and see
yeah,
which image shows up, or whatever.
100%. Yeah, trying to determine the leak by figuring out which part shows
Yeah.
up in public. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, Michael Ian Black concludes with something that I think is really important and shows how insightful he is, that he is aware
Hmm.
that as a public figure, he is a target to be misled.
Sure.
He said, I don't know who's telling the truth about this, but I'm going to apply Occam's razor here and say it's far more likely that someone wants to convince people about an imminent alien incursion than there actually being an alien incursion. I would
Yeah.
also point out that there is, and this is all caps, no reason in the world why someone like me should have been given this information if it were true. In fact, I'm the
Uh-huh.
last person you should give that information to because I'm really likely to blab it out, like I'm doing right now. In other words, I'm a perfect, useful idiot.
Yeah. Yep. I think that is a beautiful statement about exactly why it shouldn't be believed. But you know, I still think it's interesting And I would like someone to dig into why that particular psyop would be interesting.
100%. Yeah.
Because I don't see it.
It is possible that someone is running a psyop and that someone has nothing to do with the US government. You know, that this
Right.
is just
Yeah.
somebody fucking around with him. It's possible
Yeah.
that it's actual US government. It's possible that there's truths mixed in. Like, we just can't tell. But
Yeah.
the way that the information is being delivered to someone like Michael Ian Black should, as he points out, immediately cause it to be suspect. This
Yeah.
isn't the person
Totally.
you reach out to if you want information to get to the public.
Yeah.
Um,
Right.
and case in point, by the way, this was one of the big arguments against Tom DeLonge when he said he was in
Mm-mm.
contact with high up people. That got shut down a little bit when it turned out he really was in contact with John Podesta and the head of Skunkworks and General McCasland. But definitely, if you're looking for someone credulous who is willing to take information without properly vetting it and report it to the public for reasons that you want to happen, someone like Tom DeLonge is pretty useful.
Pretty good. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Now, speaking of useful idiots, do you
Where this is
remember
going?
we were talking about the rumor that President Trump was going to give a UFO disclosure speech on July 8th, the anniversary of Roswell?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that whole rumor, well, we don't know where it came from. Multiple people talked about it, but the one place we know publicly spread it was filmmaker Mark Christopher Lee. This is a UK filmmaker who claims that he was reached out to by a Washington insider who told him the speech is already written. It's going to happen on July 8th and also maybe in May. It was a little unclear. And we heard other people echo this, and it was unclear if those people were hearing from different sources, were hearing from the same insider source, or were
Yeah.
just parroting what Mark Christopher Lee said. It was really
Right.
hard to tell whether there was a there. Um,
Okay.
well, shortly after we talked about it, Mark Christopher Lee tweeted, I have been completely misled by disinformation in the UFO disclosure saga. My Washington insider source, who fed me details about Trump's July 8th speech and the May 1st press conference, was likely a plant designed to hype and manipulate the community.
Sure. Makes sense. But I still
Okay.
want to know why.
Oh, 100%. Here's the thing. In any reasonable world, that story ends there. And I wasn't planning on continuing to report on it because we talked, when we talked
Yeah.
about him, about all the reasons why you could and should be skeptical of this.
Sure.
Coming out and saying he said it was fake just felt like driving a nail in the coffin. I didn't really need to do that. But here's the weird thing. Mark Christopher Lee hasn't shut up about the speech. He's standing by his reporting, and he now says he has two sources.
Interesting.
He says, I was told about Trump's speech by one source and then by my main source. There's two sources, and I haven't been clear about that. And then, a little bit later, in an interview on a podcast, he disclosed the source behind my Trump UFO disclosure speech claims was aerospace billionaire Robert Bigelow.
Interesting. Is Bigelow doing stuff with Trump right now, or like, why would he know that?
I mean, what billionaires
No.
aren't doing stuff with Trump? But
Yeah,
more
fair.
to the point, if you were going to pluck a big name figure who might plausibly be
Yeah,
connected
it'd be
to
Bigelow.
both Trump and UFO news, Bigelow's a good reach.
He's the one. Yeah.
For anybody who's not putting that name together, Robert Bigelow was the owner of Skinwalker Ranch. When the OSAP program was created back before Lou Elizondo came out, it was largely to do UFO and paranormal research on Skinwalker Ranch, and Robert Bigelow's company got a lot of contracts as a result of that. Robert Bigelow was rumored to have built a hangar at an Air Force base that was designed to receive classified material. Lou Elizondo's claim is that was literally going to be Lockheed Martin giving back the crash retrieved UFO that they had and no longer wanted to Robert Bigelow's company to study, and then the CIA shut that down. So anyway, Bigelow's name is eye-grabbing, but also not outside the realm of possibility if there's anything
Yeah.
to this. Um, Lee shared an email that he claims to be from Robert Bigelow. It was signed RB, and it said, "There continues to be considerable pushback from certain elements who control the UFO agenda. Those forces are determined to prevent any form of true disclosure. I have used what influence I possess to advocate for more meaningful transparency, but it has become clear that what will be released will amount to little more than superficial tidbits. Nothing of substance will address the true mystic nature of the phenomena."
Yeah. It's
Okay.
interesting to hear that a billionaire can't make it happen. Like,
Yeah.
that means something.
Now, here's the next thing that happens.
Okay.
Shortly after, Mark Christopher Lee says, "My source is Robert Bigelow." Legendary UFO journalist George Knapp tweets, "This is bullshit. I spoke to Robert Bigelow less than 30 minutes ago. He says he has never met, spoken to, or emailed Mr. Lee. Anyone who
Hmm.
knows Mr. B is aware he would never share private, sensitive info with some random UFO guy in a foreign country. It is not only false, but preposterous."
I mean, that makes sense, actually. Like, uh, Bigelow is pretty quiet about some of
Yeah.
this stuff. So,
And also, I've never heard of Mark Christopher Lee before this story, but
mhm.
I sure as shit know George Knapp. And that
Yeah.
man has some credibility in this field. And if they're in disagreement, I'm inclined to think George Knapp is right. And I do know that
Yeah,
George
sure.
Knapp is in contact with Robert Bigelow. Mark Christopher Lee responds the next day, "Totally shocked this morning. Why the denial from Bigelow? I know George. He's a fan of my work. And I also know he's close to Bigelow. People have been calling me a hoaxer. But if so, why would I choose someone like Bigelow? Someone that Knapp could easily contact and debunk. It makes no sense."
Uh,
Final
I don't
detail
know.
on this story.
Yep.
As I'm
Bring it on.
gathering these tweets from Mark Christopher Lee for this episode, I'm on his Twitter account scrolling through. His most recent tweet, at like minutes before I was on his page,
Okay.
says,
It's not.
"I'm working on a film about the UFO disclosure saga, including who my sources are and why this is all happening." I'm like, okay. So,
Yeah.
for the record, for our fans, I do believe in UFOs. I find it plausible that Trump might do disclosure or be planning a speech.
Sure.
I think we can safely write Mark Christopher Lee off as not a reliable source at this point.
Yeah.
And whether or not a speech happens, I don't think it has anything to do with Mark Christopher Lee and his mysterious sources, who may or may not be Robert Bigelow.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I'm sure you're getting tired of hearing about rumors connected to Trump disclosure, but I regret to inform you I have two more. The good news is these are buck wild and you're going to have a good time with them, and they're much
All
shorter.
right. Bring it on.
First of all, a podcast called Fringe reported that former Marine Jamie Walden says he received an intelligence briefing that UFO disclosure from Trump is a done deal, scheduled for as early as May, and the commemorative coin has already been produced.
What? Okay. Sure.
I've never heard of Jamie Walden. I've never heard of Fringe. Um, the claims that he makes eerily echo Mark Christopher Lee. If Mark Christopher Lee was in contact with someone and was being misled into believing he was talking to Robert Bigelow, maybe this dude was also. But the
Yeah.
commemorative coin detail,
It's so
that one,
specific.
it's very specific and it rings true, right? Like, of course, if Trump is going to do UFO disclosure, he's going to sell merch.
Of course he is.
He's
Yeah.
not going to pass up an opportunity to make a buck off of disclosure. I still probably wouldn't have brought it to you because, again, I've never heard of Jamie Walden. Nobody else was echoing this story until journalist Ross Coulthart came out and said, I can confirm the commemorative coin
What?
story. I heard the same thing. It does appear the administration is planning a limited disclosure, but will President Trump admit the full legacy UAP program? Doubtful.
Who cares? But Ross
God,
Coulthart, wow.
again, like George Knapp, Coulthart has earned some credibility with me. He's not perfect. He's gotten things wrong in the past, just like George Knapp. But broadly speaking, he's been on the up and up. He has good sources. He doesn't spoil his sources.
Hmm.
Again, commemorative coin, that
Wow.
feels true. Like, you can't tell me
And
that
it
part doesn't
feels,
feel true.
no, it does. It has that taste of like disappointment.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Mark Christopher Lee, of course, responded to the commemorative coin story because it echoes him. And he says, more confirmation that we'll get some form of disclosure soon, possibly May. And I can tell you there will definitely be a speech. I've been busy making a video telling the whole story behind the Trump speech and the sources behind it. It will answer all of your questions regarding Bigelow, the other source, etc.
Yeah. Okay. Whatever. I
Okay.
think Mark Christopher Lee must just be an investor in these coins or something.
Yeah, maybe he's printing the coins. Yeah. All right. I can see by the look in your eyes, Chuck, that I've about
Oh,
worn out your UFO attention span, and that's fine because we're going to close on a banger.
okay. Great.
Defense Scoop reported the White House registered two new government domains this week, Alien.gov and Aliens.gov, according to publicly available federal records.
But yeah, I, for what it's worth, I just used Dig on them, and they're currently pointed at Cloudflare. So
Yeah,
does seem to be a thing.
there's there's nothing on the website yet if you
Yeah,
go there. Unsurprising, but
I
it's
did.
true. The White House
Yeah.
legitimately did register these domains. Someone asked Representative Burleson about it, and he goes, "Man, I don't know. It could have something to do with illegal aliens. Like, it could be them trolling us."
Yeah. Who knows? Yeah.
Here's what I've been saying the whole time. If you believe the rumors that disclosure is happening either via a presidential speech or via a file dump, a domain's not a weird thing to get. But also, if you asked me, is it more likely that the president is using the word alien to refer to extraterrestrials or Mexicans?
Yeah.
I'm gonna guess he's talking about illegal aliens. But wouldn't they take the opportunity to put the word illegal in the domain to really like
Oh
make
yeah.
sure
Just
that they
twist
know
the
how you
knife.
feel about it? It's like, I don't know how to feel about it. And nobody else did either. And then this happened. Defense Scoop says shortly after the initial publication of this article, White House spokeswoman Anna Kelly told Defense Scoop in an emailed response to those questions to stay tuned, and her statement included the same alien emoji that Hegseth used on social media when he reposted Trump's promise last month to publish undisclosed records about extraterrestrials and unidentified craft. So if it is a prank, they're leaning into it
Yeah.
being
Yeah.
about aliens, which, again, not outside the realm of possibility, but like, it's like I said at the top
So
of the show,
weird.
Chuck. I don't have any easy answers for you or satisfying resolutions, but to my great frustration, not one of these stories has dried up and gone away. The rumored speech, the executive order about disclosure, a giant planetoid coming in 2027, internal conflict over whether or not to release it and whether or not they're demons. Like, what is happening? It's
Oh
a
man, I
wild
don't
time.
know. What do you think is if you were the mint, what would you put on the coinage? Is it
The
going to be a
rumor
gray?
is that it's Trump with a UFO in the background.
Of course it is. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I, I don't know, man. How easy is it to get commemorative coins minted? Is Is that a thing
Wow.
that you just do on a whim? How secretive are the people who mint those coins? Would they have kept this secret, or would this have, like, I don't know. And then Ross Coulthart saying, no, the commemorative coin story is true. God
Yeah,
damn it.
like
Every time I think, oh, this part is definitely
this is
fake, I don't need to
definitely
talk
true.
to our community about it. Someone comes out and is like,
Yeah.
well, actually.
Yeah. God, I don't know. I feel like the president could make that happen, right? Um,
Yeah, that's true. There's one person who could. Although, even there, we've talked before, like, if there was a single president who was going to announce UFO disclosure, that would leave you going, like, yeah, but really? It'd be Trump.
yeah.
Like, he could come out and be like, here's the body, there's the craft, here's the files. And I'd be like, 50% chance this is all fake.
Yeah, right. But does this count as number 2 mention? Or is this like number 6 with
What?
disclosure? So like you said Trump people wait until the second time he says
Oh,
something.
yeah.
Does this count as number 2?
I don't know how they begin to count. How do you even begin trying to predict what the president wants you to do on any given day? It's a
Yeah, I don't
nightmare
know.
job. And it's their own goddamn fault, and they don't need to work there. But yeah, anyway. All right,
Hey.
everybody, thank you so much for joining us on a very weird episode of It's a Very Exciting Time. You can find show notes and more on our website, veryexcitingtime.com, as well as links to our Discord and social media accounts.
And if you'd like to support the show, please check out our Patreon at patreon.com/veryexcitingtime or grab some t-shirts at veryexcitingtime.com/merch.
That's right. And Chuck, as always, my wife thanks you for listening to me talk about UFOs so she doesn't have to.